Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Eggleston, and I run Course Report, which is a resource for students who are choosing a coding boot camp. And today we get to answer a question that we've been hearing more and more often these days. So I want to introduce our guest. Christine Tayaba is joining us. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. So Christine went to General Assembly and she got a loan from Climb Credit to pay for the tuition. And I think people probably know about Climb if you've been researching boot camps. Climb is one of the more popular lending companies that works directly with boot camp grads. And we know that, being able to take out a loan for a boot camp can make it more accessible for more people. But years down the line, we wonder, of course, if it's worth it. So Christine is going to answer all my questions, not only about her experience at General Assembly and getting a job afterwards, but also about taking out a loan and whether that was worth it for her. So Christine, thank you so much for being here. I just want to start with what were you up to before you went to GA? What's your pre-boot camp story?
So prior to that, I was primarily in a sales and marketing role. So doing sales for a pharmaceutical company, biotech company, and traveling a ton. And being in sales, it's very demanding, it's very rewarding, but I also traveled a lot. And so I was getting really burnt out. And so I wanted a life change. And I started to prioritize some other things in my life and I wanted to just pivot. And so I started exploring different careers and had come across UX design and product design through a friend of mine and had talked to her about it and her journey into UX. And then I started just from there exploring more and seeing like, hey, who else is in design? Who else is doing this? And like setting up informational interviews about the job.
That's really smart to talk to people who are actually working in the fields before making a total career change. So you ended up doing the UX design immersive at General Assembly. And how did you actually choose GA once you decided you wanted to be a UX designer?
I chose GA for a couple of reasons. They offered the full-time immersive. I knew for myself I wanted to just dive in and be fully involved in what I was learning. Plus, I like to learn in person. They do have the option to learn online, but I think it was a shorter program. And I know that there were other programs that were longer. Some are a couple of years, and you can get like another type of certificate. But for me, it was just really important for me to learn the fundamentals and get working as soon as possible.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. When did you actually graduate from GA?
It was 2017 in September.
Okay. So it's been about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. That's great. Well, one of the most frequently asked questions we hear and that I get every day is, how do I pay for a boot camp? So, I mean, I know this is one of the more sensitive subjects to talk about, but how did you pay for General Assembly?
So I did pay about half of the tuition. And then, of course, I needed money to have just to save and survive. I also applied for a loan through Climb, which really helped. And then I worked a little bit part-time as well.
So I know this may be different for everyone, but could you just describe the loan process, like what it was like to actually get approved and how long maybe it took?
Yeah, it was really quick. I went online, clicked a link, punched in all my details, and I think I got an immediate answer and then a follow-up email with like the amount. And then you don't have to, or I think you can put in the amount that you might need and then go from there.
And have you ever taken out other types of student loans? I'm just curious how this process kind of compares to a student loan.
Yeah, it's been a long time. This was definitely easier than I think in the past. I think that it's been streamlined to be that quick and easy. So yeah, from what I remember, it was just pretty seamless this time around.
And did Climb have you start paying the loan back, like once you started at GA, or were there some terms like once you graduated, you had a certain number of months to start paying, or once you got a job, were there terms like that?
Yeah, from what I recall, I think it was just interest only during school. And then you had a 6-month grace period and still you started paying your loan completely off. And then my terms were 2 years. So I paid it off in 2 years.
That's cool. Just because for like the average coding boot camper, it takes about 6 months to land a job after you graduate. So that timing seems like it lines up. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you pay half of your tuition, you have your loan from Climb, and then you start at GA. So what was a typical day like at General Assembly?
I found it to be, I wouldn't say easy. It's definitely challenging because you're learning new things. I feel like I was really lucky because our class was really tight knit and we were so great. Like the teachers were awesome. And it's all about building that relationship and being not afraid to ask some questions. Typical day, you just get started on whatever's on the agenda. We would start with like maybe some theory, go into design. Some days were collaboration. It would really depend on where we were at, but it was a really great experience, definitely. I mean, my suggestion for anyone is to go in pretty prepared with like the tools so that you can just soak in what you're learning and then apply everything you've learned with all the design tools.
So kind of like learn the ins and outs of Sketch and InDesign, or like some of those tools first so that you can really like learn in the classroom how to use them, or more of the fundamentals, I guess.
Yeah. So that you're not like figuring out, oh, how do I make a square or a circle or anything? If you don't waste your time with that, I mean, that you will just learn with practice, and you can learn online from YouTube, and Sketch will have tutorials online too. And then once you learn really one tool, you can pretty much learn other ones really quick, like Figma or Adobe XD.
Got it. That's actually really good advice, to like actually learn those tools before you start in the curriculum. So you mentioned that you were working part-time as you were doing the full-time boot camp. How did you balance that?
It was mainly part-time and mainly on the weekends, and just very little. Like, I mean, it was challenging, but possible. But I chose to do that. And then, I recommend it to anyone who can definitely handle it. I mean, you can handle the workload, but I really prepared myself prior, like with reading design books that they recommended, learning the tools. And then anything I learned during the week, of course, like I scheduled time to like review and stuff.
Yeah, I think everyone, I mean, if you're not balancing a part-time job, you're typically balancing something, right? Like maybe childcare or like taking care of your family. So always good to get some advice from from someone who's been through it. Yeah. So I know it was about 3 years ago that you did the boot camp. Do you remember what you actually learned throughout, or maybe like the projects that you worked on?
Yeah, you learn to build a basic desktop web design and a mobile application. Oh, sorry about that. And then also you present your work a ton. And then with those projects, you also build your portfolio. You do a portfolio review, and you sort of do I wouldn't say a mock interview, but you're always going to present your portfolio in an interview anyway. So you kind of go through that process of presenting your work.
What kinds of roles did you feel qualified to apply for when you graduated?
So it's interesting, when you look for jobs, you'll see UX designer, product designer, UX UI designer. I honestly looked at all the titles. I'm like, okay, I think I'm qualified for that, but it's going into the details and what they describe. So interaction designer, it was anything product design, UX, UI design, interaction design that I knew that I was capable of doing.
And did someone from General Assembly like kind of help you navigate what those job descriptions were actually saying? Like, how did you know that you what to look for?
They set you up with a career sort of counselor, someone that kind of talks with you and is just, trying to see what steps you're taking to look for jobs. There are certain key things that I learned in the program that you learn to look for, UI design, user flows, customer interviews, surveys, research, et cetera. So I would look for those things. And the career coach, he really helped me to just track all of my applications that went out. And that I will do from here on out for any job. It's like, who did I apply to? What was in the cover letter? Did I hear a reply back? How soon did I hear a reply back? And when? Did it seem like a bot or was it a real person? So it's just kind of like setting up my own metrics. So I knew about how many applications should go out for me to get an actual reply. So it was good to really track that. And I was really grateful for him to get me to do that.
Okay. So you've been in the design field for years now. So congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit about your career after graduating?
Yeah, definitely. So I started off doing freelance work and smaller projects. I wanted to develop my portfolio and also kind of work on different things to see maybe what industries I wanted to be in. Plus, it was good for me to distinguish myself, I think, from others, to have actual work that's outside of bootcamp. So that's something I really recommend people to do, is start building that out. And let's say you don't get a freelance project, do a case study. Because I think a lot of these hiring companies will get these graduates from the boot camps and then they'll notice, hey, your portfolio is pretty similar to someone else's portfolio. So you want to stand out in some way. So I started doing freelance work, and then from there worked at an agency, worked for the city, then worked for a major media company, and then another media company, and then now I'm in advertising technology. So I really love where I'm at, and it's been quite a journey, but well worth it.
Yeah, it sounds like you've built up a ton of experience over the last few years. So, okay, so you're working in ad tech now, and I'm just curious, for someone who's like, I want to do a UX boot camp, but what is my career gonna look like? What am I going to be doing in, 3 or 4 years? What are you working on in your current job? Like, what kinds of problems are you working on?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. I can't divulge too much information, but for example, one is an application where it's not being well received and it's customer facing. So it's improving the flows and the design for that and making it better. That's one thing. Other things are just improving current applications and certain flows, certain errors, things like that. Others is doing research. I'm starting to divulge into a lot of research, and especially with that customer facing project. And then, just improving the whole user experience with that. I know it's very vague and high level, but I can't say.
No, it makes perfect sense. Improving user flows, research. I mean, can you share what your job title is now? Like what the role is?
UX designer.
UX designer. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, in all of the roles that you've done over the last few years, have you always been called UX designer, or has that changed?
No, I've always been called a UX designer. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I talk to people and they're like, I've been a product designer, UX designer, UI designer, and they've done the same job over 4 years, but have been called several different things just because the industry has so many different job titles.
Yeah. Definitely.
So Have you in the jobs that you've had since graduating from GA? I'm curious, just have you noticed a thread or like a trend in terms of like how you um, get connected to new jobs? Like, has your GA network been helpful at all, or is it just kind of like making connections and building, or do you apply on like LinkedIn for every job that you?
It's been a combination of both. When I've looked, when I do get into a search, I'll reach out to recruiters, I'll do LinkedIn, I will go to UX events that are happening, and also talk to other designers that I've met along the way that I have good relationships with. So it's been a little bit of everything. Like, no stone is left unturned when you're looking for that new opportunity. So, that's really my suggestion to you for anyone, especially out of a boot camp and making a complete career change is, you never know who someone might know somewhere.
That's totally fair. Do you feel like you use what you learned at General Assembly 4 years ago, or has your skill set just like totally evolved since you graduated?
I definitely use some of the stuff that I learned there, and you sort of take that process and apply it to every single job. And the process always changes every single time, because sometimes you can do full research, do interviews, design an application, iterate, test it again. And then sometimes you don't. So you have to adjust every single time. Sometimes you need something really quick. You do quick research on like competitors and then put it together and can't test it. And you have a discussion with like product managers and senior management. So it can vary.
Looking back on the past few years, I ask this of every bootcamp grad that I talk to. Do you feel like it was worth it to go to General Assembly?
Absolutely. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love every aspect of it, from the creativity to the analysis to the psychology. There's a lot of collaboration and you're working with really brilliant people. And so sometimes I'm Googling stuff on the side because I'm like, what did he say? Because I don't know that term. So you're constantly and perpetually learning in this industry. And I think because things are changing so fast, you're always going to have to keep up with what's going on and kind of have your finger on the pulse on like what's happening. So I don't regret it at all. And then you also, you take that and you learn and you adjust and you learn from like people around you.
So you mentioned before that it took about 2 years. That was like the term of the loan. So it took about 2 years to pay off that climb loan. Mm-hmm. Did everything like go according to plan there? Were you able to pay off your climb loan for GA like with your salary as a UX designer?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, when you start off, you can't expect like, hey, you're going to be at a certain amount. So, it was very humbling to almost start over and then just have faith that as you move forward, that you're going to earn more money, of course, with experience. But yeah, paying it off in 2 years was nice. Done. It's out of the way. So I thought that was convenient with the terms. It worked for me. It might not work for someone else. And I don't know if they have other terms in any other way, but I know for me, my terms were 2 years.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you worked in sales before, and you obviously don't have to like tell us your like before after salary, but like, did you take a salary cut initially to switch careers from sales to UX design?
Yeah, especially with sales, because sales, it's like you can be all commission, you can be salary and commission. There's just the potential to earn a lot. So definitely took a little bit of a hit, but that's okay because I'm starting off new in a new industry, and then but it's well worth it in my opinion. And it's like the jobs are abundant in UX design.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like when we say, is the boot camp worth it? Like sometimes we just think, like, did you get a better salary when you graduated? But it's actually can be, you can measure that as like your quality of life or like how much you love your job and things like that. So thanks for
Yeah.
pointing that out. Okay, last question. Now that you've paid off your climb loan, like, would you say that it was worth it to take out a loan in order to attend a boot camp? Or is there anything that you wish you had known before you actually took a loan to do a boot camp?
I think it was definitely worth it to take a loan. It helped me out. It was a little less stress off my shoulders. I worked really hard in the program and after to make sure I landed a job as soon as possible. And for anyone looking to do a career change that needs it, like I definitely think you should do it.
All right. Well, that is a great place to end. So, thank you so much, Christine, for joining and walking us through your experience with General Assembly and with Climb Credit and sharing such great advice for anyone who's graduating from a boot camp. I feel like I learned so much. Before you start, be sure to learn some of the UX design tools before you actually get into the classroom so you can really soak up all that like theory and fundamentals and learn as much as you can, and then get as much experience as you can after you graduate doing freelance work, building out case studies, things like that. Really, really good advice. So thanks so much, Christine, and thank you to our viewers who made it to the end of this video. Let us know in the comments which topic you'd like us to cover on the next course report video. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.